One afternoon, I was sitting at my usual coffee shop, watching the people pass by, when I suddenly saw Mr. Thomas, an old friend I hadn't seen in over 3 years. He looked just the same, moving slowly, his shirt neatly buttoned up, but there was something different. He seemed quieter, as if the light in his eyes had dimmed. And strangely, people around him were keeping their distance. No one said anything, but I could feel it. We greeted each other and sat down, and he began to talk, not about his health, but about a quiet kind of loneliness. "I don't get it," he said. "I'm still me. But lately, people don't seem to want to be around. Did I do something wrong?" That question stayed with me all evening, and it made me start noticing the little things, the things people see, but rarely say out loud. A shirt that's lost its color, a voice that's just a bit too loud, the habit of interrupting without meaning to, a quiet complaint here and there, a posture that's slowly begun to slump with age. No one brings it up out of politeness or because they don't want to offend, but those unsaid things carry weight in how others see us, treat us, and feel around us. Today, I want to share 5 of those quiet signals with you. They're not hard to change, but noticing and adjusting them could help you regain that sense of confidence, warmth, and approachability, no matter how old you are. If you've ever found yourself feeling more distant from others, or if you simply want to keep that spark alive and be respected for who you truly are, this video is for you. Let's start with the very first thing. It might seem like just a matter of mirrors and combs, but it actually reflects the energy you bring into the world. I have an uncle named Walter. He's now over 80 years old and used to be one of the most polished men I knew. Back in his younger days, Uncle Walter never stepped out without neatly combed hair, a crisp white shirt, and shoes so well-shined you could practically see your reflection in them. He didn't need expensive clothes, just one look, and you could sense his seriousness, his confidence, and his vitality. But over the past few years, things began to shift. The perfectly pressed shirts were replaced by stretched-out old sweaters. His shoes turned into worn sneakers, and his once pristine haircut grew out, unstyled and unintentional. No one in the family said anything. We all quietly thought, "Well, he's old now." Until one day, he said it himself. "I looked in the mirror this morning, and I didn't recognize the man staring back at me." Why does something as small as personal grooming matter so much? Because how we look on the outside isn't just about appearance. It's the energy we project into the world. When you look put together, you're sending a silent but powerful message. I care about myself, and I care about how I show up in front of you. Studies have shown that people who continue with basic self-care, like shaving, trimming their nails, or using simple skincare, aren't just seen as healthier. They feel more alive, more motivated, and more connected to life itself. And no, this doesn't require expensive creams or fancy salons. Sometimes, all it takes is a comb, a dab of moisturizer, and a clean, well-fitting shirt. That alone can help you walk out the door with your shoulders straighter and your steps a little lighter. Mirrors don't reflect age. They reflect how we treat ourselves. And in the next part, we're going to talk about something else that quietly changes how others experience us. Not your looks, but the volume of your voice. And you might be surprised at how much it affects whether people want to stay close or quietly pull away. George has been my longtime next-door neighbor. He's 77 now, retired for almost a decade, and still very much the life of the party at any family gathering. Funny, full of energy, and never short on stories to tell. That's the George we all know and love. But lately, I've noticed something. People have started quietly avoiding long conversations with George. They still greet him politely, but they no longer linger the way they used to. At first, I figured maybe he was just repeating old stories too often. But then, at a small get-together, I sat near George, and it clicked. He was speaking way too loud. Loud enough to overpower the person across from him. And more than once, he cut people off mid-sentence, not out of rudeness, but simply without realizing. This is something many folks over 60 don't even notice. As hearing starts to decline, even slightly, you often lose your sense of how loud your own voice is. That can lead to speaking too loudly, jumping in to keep up with a conversation, and unintentionally wearing people out. No one wants to hurt your feelings, So they stay quiet and slowly step back. But the solution? It's not complicated. Pay attention to people's body language. If they lean away, start speaking more softly, or glance around when you talk, it might be a sign you're too loud. Get your hearing checked regularly. It's simple, and it matters more than you think. And practice pausing before you speak, just long enough to make sure you're not interrupting someone else. Because real communication isn't just about talking well. It's about creating space for others to feel heard too. When you speak with calmness and listen with intention, every conversation becomes a bridge, not a barrier. And next, we'll take a look at another quiet way distance can grow. Not in your words, but in what you wear. Because clothing isn't just about covering your body. It quietly signals how you want to be seen. Harold used to be one of the most well-dressed men in the neighborhood. Even in his 80s, he still took pride in his classic sense of style. A gray tailored suit, a leather strap watch, and a pair of brown shoes polished to a mirror's shine. But over time, and perhaps with a bit of weariness, that started to change. He began wearing the same clothes day after day. Wrinkled old shirts, baggy slacks, and worn-out sneakers. No one blamed him. He was still Harold, kind, sharp, and always wearing that warm, familiar smile. But something strange happened. People started talking to him less. Or when they did, it was in a way that subtly aged him, as if he was no longer a peer, but someone to be looked after. Here's the truth. Clothing isn't just something we put on. It's how we introduce ourselves before we even speak. When your clothes are outdated, oversized, wrinkled, or no longer fit your shape, you don't just look older. You unintentionally send a message that you may have given up on yourself. And that changes how others interact with you. They may trust you less, listen less intently, or even treat you as someone who needs help, even when you don't. The good news? You don't need to chase trends or dress like you're 25 again. You just need to choose clothes that are clean, well-fitted, and intentional. A light-colored, collared shirt that fits your shoulders. A pair of pants that's not too loose, not too tight. Clean, supportive shoes that feel sturdy when you walk. And if you like, a small touch like a scarf or a classic watch. Something subtle that says, I still care how I show up in the world. Harold made just a few small changes. And for the first time in a long while, his granddaughter hugged him tight and said, Grandpa, you look like the man I used to brag about to my friends. Clothes don't define who we are, but sometimes they remind others and ourselves that we're still here, still present, still vibrant, and still worth listening to. But sometimes, it's not just our clothes or our voice that creates distance. It's our attitude in conversations, especially when we unknowingly bring too much negativity or constant complaints. In the next part, we'll explore how words, even the unintentional ones, can quietly wear down relationships more than we realize. I know someone named Roger, 75 years old, retired, living with his wife in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Roger is full of life experiences and a natural storyteller. Whenever someone stops by, he lights up, sharing stories from his younger days working in the lumberyard to the adventures he's had traveling far from home. But over time, something shifted in the tone of his stories. They don't make things like they used to. Kids today don't respect anything. TV's just garbage now. The whole world's going downhill. At first, people brushed it off. He's just being nostalgic, they said. But gradually, the visits slowed down. Conversations became shorter. Even his grandson, who used to love spending time with him, started finding excuses to step away. Why does that happen? Because emotional energy is like the air in a room. Too much complaining, criticizing, or negativity can make that air feel heavy, leaving others drained, even if they can't quite explain why. We all need to express our frustrations from time to time. That's human. But if every conversation turns into things were better back then, and everything's worse now, people eventually withdraw, quietly, and without confrontation. So what can we do? It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about finding balance. For every flaw you see, try to also spot something new, interesting, or hopeful. Instead of saying, we used to do it better, try, I'm curious how the younger generation does it these days. Maybe there's something I could learn. Sometimes, Just rephrasing a sentence can shift the entire tone and open the door to a more meaningful, uplifting conversation. People may not always remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And that feeling, whether light or heavy, doesn't come from your words alone. It also comes from how you enter a room, how you sit, how you stand, and even how you walk. In the next part, we'll talk about one of the most powerful forms of unspoken communication, posture and body language, and how just a small shift in how you carry yourself can completely change the way others see you. Frank is 78, lively, funny, and deeply loved by his friends. He used to be the first one to show up at gatherings and the last to leave. But lately, he started to notice something strange. When he talks, people take a small step back. Conversations seem shorter. A few folks even turn slightly away when he walks up. No one says anything, but Frank feels it. A quiet distance. So what changed? Frank didn't realize he was dealing with dry mouth more often, a side effect of the heart medication he takes. This led to bad breath, something he couldn't smell, but others could. On top of that, he'd been drinking less water, wearing the same clothes more often because he was mostly at home, and still using an old deodorant that had long stopped being effective. All of these small things added up to an impression that, while unintentional, pushed others away, even though Frank was still the same kind, warm-hearted man. Why does this matter? Because personal hygiene is one of those invisible but powerful parts of how we connect with others. If your breath is stale or your body odor is noticeable, people might not say a word, but they'll keep their distance. Not because they don't like you, but because they feel uncomfortable and don't want to hurt your feelings. That quiet space between you, it starts to grow. And it's real. Thankfully, the solution is simple and gentle. Drink more water to keep your mouth naturally hydrated. Use sugar-free mints or rinse your mouth lightly after meals. Switch up deodorants until you find one that works well for your body. Change and wash your clothes regularly, including scarves, hats, and pillowcases. If you're on medication, ask your doctor if it could be affecting your breath and what you can do about it. Frank made just a few small changes, drinking more water, using sugar-free mints, and replacing his deodorant. And something amazing happened. His friends started leaning in again, just like before. And with a smile, he said, "Maybe keeping people close really does start with a fresh breath." Closeness begins with the little things, a clean breath, a fresh shirt, and the comfort of simply being near one another. And now, we've explored 5 small, often overlooked details. But as you've seen, these are the quiet threads that shape how others connect with us after 50. Now it's time to reflect, not to judge ourselves, but to choose a new way forward. Clearer, more confident, and more human. Let's step into the closing chapter, where I'll share something personal. And why, whether you're 55 or 85, it's never too late to begin again, one small change at a time. As we wrap up today's conversation, maybe one, or even a few, of the 6 habits we discussed felt familiar to you. Something small, but something that may have quietly created distance between you and the people around you. No one says it out loud, not because they don't care, but because sometimes they simply don't know how to say it without hurting your feelings. But here's what I believe. Recognizing when something no longer serves you isn't weakness. It's the first step toward becoming stronger. A clean mirror, a softer tone of voice, a well-fitted shirt. Each is a quiet but powerful sign that says, I still care about myself and about how I connect with the world around me. Age doesn't make you any less of who you are, but letting go of self-care can sometimes dim the light in you that others used to see so clearly. And trust me, with just a little adjustment each day, you'll start to notice something powerful. Not only will others see you differently, you'll begin to feel more alive too. If something in today's video resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. You're not alone. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next video in this journey we're building. A journey designed especially for those of us who are living fully after 50. Thank you for being here today. I'll see you next time.